Now, to close the loop on the folks who say no to water fluoride by drinking bottled water, starting in around 1980, BPA has been used in all plastic bottles in almost all plastics. Some of it's coming out now. This is bisphenol A, and they replace glass bottles. And this is another fertility-depressing chemical. BPA, bisphenol A, is a xenoestrogen. Men's sperm counts are now down by as much as 90%. There's two types of these plastics. There's polycarbonates, which use BPA plastics like water bottles, and there's epoxy resins that are used on the inside of cans. Now, I'm going to shake you up in a second because almost all organic canned goods still have epoxy resins made with bisphenol A. So if you're buying organic vegetables in a can, you're still getting a huge dose of BPA from the can. BPA is ingested when it leaches into the bottled water and food that we carry. Almost every can in the world is lined with epoxy resins loaded with BPA. Chronic exposure plus most organics, frozen veggies, are in BPA bags. In other words, you get frozen vegetables, they are in plastic bags that contain BPA. Most organic cans contain BPA. So folks who are using and buying more expensive organic canned goods and plastics are spending extra money and being poisoned by this xenoestrogen compound. Now, there are some organic manufacturers who don't use BPA in their cans or plastic bags. I'm going to give you those right now that we know of. There's probably more. These are the ones that we personally use. But we buy organic food. We buy it from Amy's, from Farmer's Market, from Eden, from Field Day, and from Wolfgang Puck. They don't use BPA liners in their cans. They don't use plastic bags for their vegetables or for their foods. Okay, now remember, BPA is being specifically targeted. It was put back into the food supply through the cans back in the 40s and 50s as liners because they used to not have liners in the cans. And what BPA does, when you give it to a woman and she's eating canned foods, etc., or drinking out of plastic bottles, it massively increases her estrogen content if she's pregnant. And when that happens, if she's pregnant with a little boy, the sexual differentiation occurs after the first trimester, and you give the woman exogenous estrogens when she's pregnant. What ends up happening is the ovaries simply cannot produce enough testosterone, the adrenal glands cannot produce enough testosterone, and that little boy becomes feminized. He goes from a left brain male to a right brain dominated female brain. And so he becomes very, very feminized. He has tremendous gender confusion. And this is happening all of the time in the United States right now.
Now, that point that he just mentioned, and I haven't said a ton about this, but it almost seems like there is a literal epidemic / takeover of feminized teenagers / young men in particular in today's day and age. I mean, an unbelievably increasingly disproportionate amount of feminized men who may not even have that inclination had they had any kind of normal hormones. Now, I understand there's a demonic component with the whole homosexuality. Obviously, there is. Okay, I'm not discounting that, but I'm saying what initially established that feminization was a physiological thing in many cases. This is a whole other aspect to the whole gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender thing, and this is from a physiological standpoint that is happening, that is all by design. I've covered the BPA issue before. He actually added some things in there I hadn't really even known about or covered in full. Just key in BPA in the keyword search box at contendingfortruth.com. So drinking out of the plastic bottles and the bottled water in particular is one of the main ways. Anything that comes in plastic, particularly liquids, and then now the canned goods. Also are one of the main. Now, a lot of the, I've seen this more and more when you buy organic on the canned goods, some of the companies are coming flat out and saying this is a non-BPA line can. And that's what I would absolutely recommend. Of feminized teenagers, and I'm sure adolescents and men now, is off the scale. I mean off the scale. I mean, I grew up like in the 80s and the 90s. This was not the case. back then. You know, like in my high school, I had, I don't know, 130 in my class, and there was probably 3 or 4 maybe that were openly gay. Now it's like, you know, depending on where you go, depending on what, I don't know, social strata you're dealing with, it is, I don't even know what the percentages are. But we're literally creating a modern day Sodom and Gomorrah, which is, again, all by design, sure. 100%. I mean, a legion of feminized men aren't going to probably be the best ones to battle the New World Order, obviously, or get saved, or take any kind of real godly stance. Even if they know right from wrong, you know, they're probably not going to be the best ones to, you know... I mean, Satan's doing this for a reason. He does not want godly men with testosterone in their system to have any say in what's coming down the pike. He does not want a viable army of Christian men to fight this. He wants an army of feminized, you know, men, basically, that, you know, are they're not going to be God's warriors, put it that way. It's not going to happen, ultimately.